8. Frost lay in the branches and froze Clogger's breath on the eyepiece of the telescope. He wiped it angrily with his glove, but it was impossible to be really unhappy on such an evening. The sky was a dimming blue from horizon to horizon. The January evenings were beginning to draw out. Clogger consulted the old watch and chain that the lookouts always carried in their top pockets. 5 o'clock. 15 minutes now more in the cuckoo's nests. He scanned the horizon with the telescope again. He was shivering so much that this horizon jumped round like a kangaroo. Then he sucked in his breath. There was a dot low over the waves. He lost it, and he couldn't find it again. A stream of frightful Glaswegian words escaped his lips when he finally spotted it again. It was near. He could see it. It had 2 engines. Captain, sir. Chaz's head emerged from a loophole. Plane, sir. Twin engine flying low. Scarper! Shouted Chaz. Gun out. They whipped the silver fabric off the gun and pushed the muzzle past Clogger as he scrambled in. Hey, watch it. I don't want a hole where my mad inner is. Chaz gripped with the gun and peered down the gun sight. Lower the fence. Kem undid the knotted rope and the section of fence fell away, revealing the view over the bay. There was nothing in sight. Oh no, another false alarm, Clogger, you bean at Uncle Whiskey's again. There was something. Ah, tell ya, it's too far off we out's telescope yet. Wait, and soon there it was. A British plane. A Blenheim. Chaz's eyes watered with the strain of looking. It was very low for a British plane, but perhaps it was damaged. No, the propellers had the same queer windmill look. It was gliding in, with its engines shut off. It was black. It was him, and as before, it had passed right overhead. It lined up the sights on it. It grew bigger and bigger. Wait! Finger on the curving trigger. Go on, said Kem, and nudged him. There was a flash and a roar. Something hit Chaz in the chest, much harder than Bodger Brown's fist. He fell over backwards, pulling the gun with him. He lay in the ground with the thing still punching away in his chest. Wood splinters and soil rained down. He stared aghast at a gaping hole in the roof, through which he saw the German plane cross the Zinal, past the Zindream. It looked completely unarmed. The tremendous banging of the gun ceased. Kem stared at the enormous hole in the roof. Core, blimey! The streams of bullets from the machine gun missed the German fighter by miles. But it startled the pilot so much he put the plane into a near vertical climb and nearly stalled. While he was battling to regain control, he was spotted by a lone pom-pom gunner on the bank top, who had been seeing to his gun sight. Long lines of red stitching followed the fighter up the sky. More pom-poms opened up. One blew off the fighter's wingtip, and that seemed to drive the pilot mad. Far from trying to escape, he started a personal vendetta against the pom-poms. Once he came so low, he curved around the lighthouse in the bank top at 0 feet, causing a fat woman with a pram to faint at the entrance to Chapel Street. The end to such bad behaviour was inevitable. 3 Spitfires from Accrington got between him and the sea, but the pilot seemed beyond caring. He headed straight for the Spitfires, guns blazing. They were still blazing when he blew up at the harbour mouth. You could hear people cheering on both sides of the river. What with the explosion and the cheering, nobody had noticed a small dark mass that had detached itself from the Messerschmitt at the last possible moment. It flew clearly to the ground before a parachute opened, and still hit the ground rather hard. Sergeant Rudy Gerlith, of the victorious Luftwaffe, trying to stand up, but his ankle was agony, so he crawled instead, gathering the telltale folds of parachute as he went, into a clumsy bundle. He was in some sort of garden. Apart from the forest of Brussels sprouts around him, the only cover was some little wooden sheds. He crawled to the first shed, and opened the door, only to be greeted by a frantic clucking and fluttering. Hens, and where they were hens, people come to feed them. No go, he shut the door and crawled on. The next hut contained one big fat rabbit. He regarded Rudy thoughtfully, with chewing his way up a long dandelion leaf. Rabbit, I envy you, said Rudy. Rabbits live longer than the rear gunners. The next hut was empty, except for spades and sacks. Rudy climbed in painfully, pulling the muddy parachute after him. He looked at his ankle. It wasn't broken or even bleeding, just sprained so he couldn't walk. Might as well surrender, he thought. Might be a hot meal before interrogation. I reveal all the secrets of the Third Reich for a glass of schnapps and a lump of sausage. He opened the hut door and shouted loudly. Nobody came. Eventually he got tired of shouting and fell asleep. The glare of the exploding plane right overhead did queer things to Chaz's eyes. Everything he looked at had a glowing blue hole in it. The shape and size of the explosion. He wondered where he would go permanently blind. It would be a tragic loss to the world. He heard a BBC announcer, his voice, and heard say, he could have been the finest brain surgeon England had ever seen. Even blind, he is a superb concert pianist, but now how he should ever see the blue sky again. He went on walking around in circles and peering at things. The hole in his eyes seemed to be fading. He suddenly felt hungry and wondered what was for tea. Ken was capering like a dervish on top of the fortress, pulling up Audrey's camouflage bushes and whirling them round his head. We got him! You and how many Spitfires? Said Audrey acidly. You've certainly blown a fine hole in our roof with the thing. Stop squabbling, you two, announced Chas with tears in his eyes. A brave man has died. He died facing his foes. What more can any man hope for? He felt all grand and swashy inside, like when they played Land of Hope and Glory at school. But the next second he felt cross, because the Messerschmitt had blown up above the waters of the harbour, and there wouldn't be any souvenirs to pick up. What about that hole in the roof? Asked Audrey again. And next time you might kill somebody with that nasty great gun. That's what it's for. That's what I was trying to do, so anyway, what do stupid girls know about it? Besides, he pointed to Ken. That stupid laughing fool jogged my arm. Weren't that, said Ken. You couldn't hold the gun steady, you puny, that's your trouble. Nobody could have held it, said Chas. It's kicked like a mule. You haven't even tried firing. Garn Earl Flynn did it in the film. He charged the Jerry with firing from the hip and won the VC. You're wrong. Only British can get the VC, shouted Audrey. Girls, they all shouted together. What do girls know about it? And then they went back to squabbling. You can't believe what's on films. Wasn't a real machine gun. Was it? It was flashing. Wasn't it? Wasn't. Wasn't. What about the hole in the roof? And I'm not going back into the camp to make tea and to come to put that nasty great thing away. Sure up. Oh, we better go do as she says. I will not get a cup of tea. And you better find some way of holding that gun down. Somebody shot me ma's head off. My dad can make a stand to hold it. Ah, dare you say he could. But how are you going to ask him? You can hardly say, to make us a stand for me, real loaded machine gun. Chas looked thoughtful. I can get him to make me one, but have to borrow his telescope for a few days. Why not? There is now left to watch out for now, anyway. Rudy wakened, stiff and cold. No matter how carefully he arranged them, the sacks fell off him during the night. His ankle was up like a pudding. He wouldn't be able to walk for a week. He opened the hut door and looked out. The sky was grey. His watch had stopped, and there was no way of telling the time. He was terribly hungry. Even the frosted Brussels sprouts began to seem appetising. He spent an hour crawling over and gathering some. He had to suck the frost out of them before he could chew them. They were as hard as bullets. He wished he could surrender, but no one came. He fell asleep. When he wakened again, the sky was still grey. He was beginning to lose feelings in his legs. When he finally got the circulation back, the pins and needles were awful. He decided to crawl in and surrender. He'd seen 100 miles to the edge of the allotments, where he got to the fence and looked through a gap. There was only a cinder track, a disused gas lamp on the high brick wall of some factory. It was getting dark and started to snow, so he had to crawl all the way back. He became so confused he couldn't find his hut at first. He slept again. It was the rabbits who saved him that week. Most of the huts contained a few. In their hutches he found food. Crusts of toast, baked potato peelings, bran mash, drinkable water. In the evening the beasts bolted. When he opened the hutch doors to steal their dinner, bundles of warm, panicky fur hurled themselves from one side of the other, pressing their panting sides into patterns against the hutch wire. He contemplated killing none of the meat, but he wasn't desperate enough yet. After 5 days the rabbits got used to him and eyed him placidly. He spent hours in their company, giving them pet names. Birgit, Franz, Heinz. He talked to them, and they seemed to listen, drooping first one ear, then the other. Why were they fed? When were they fed? Why did he ever see the owners? He couldn't tell. He contemplated sleeping with them, waiting to be captured, but he had an aversion to be taken in sleep. Besides, a distrust of all humans was setting in. Not the fear of a prisoner of war for his enemies, but the distrust of a wild animal, daily growing wilder. He only saw one other human being in all his time in the allotment, an old man picking Brussels sprouts. It took Rudy a long time to pluck up courage to shout and wave. The old man gave one panicky look and ran. Rudy expected him back with soldiers, but he didn't come. Perhaps the old man had been a thief and hadn't realised Rudy was a German. Chas knew very well how to approach his dad. He carried the telescope home and dumped it in front of him. Where'd you get that? Ken Jones wanted a swap. It was Grandad's. He wanted my train set. Is it worth it? Mr. McGill reached up for the telescope, turning it over in his clever mechanic's hands, feeling the solid craftsmanship. Ken Jones is a fool.
This is worth a lot more than your train set. Does his dad know who's swapping it? Yeah, he was there. He said this is mucky old rubbish and not worth a good train set. He and I was a fool. Mr. McGill brittled. You didn't like Mr. Jones. There was a long-standing row between the families. That man knows nought but tombstones. A baron could see this is a good piece of stuff. Already he was taking the telescope to pieces. Need a bit of saying to, though. Go and fetch me tools in the Bresso. It was a peaceful evening like one before the war. Grandad was better, and had gone off to the pub to have a crack with his mates. Nana was skinning a rabbit in the kitchen, her brawny red arms scoured with tufts of fur. Mrs. McGill put some potatoes to bake next to the fire, in their jackets. Mr. McGill worked on the telescope, laying out parts in careful order on a sheet of newspaper. How would he ever get them together again? But he did, gleaming and shining, pointing out things of interest to Charles as he did so. Can I swap them? You're growing up, and railways are behind there. Better not show the telescope to Mr. Jones now, though, or I'll change his mind. Old rubbish indeed. The man's an idiot. Now, what is the moment? Chaz took a deep breath. Only trouble is, Dad, it's so heavy, I can't hold it steady. Mr. McGill looked up at him with a slow grin. I knew there'd be a catch. Want me to take you to be make you a tripod for it? Yeah, in the moment of triumph. Chaz saw the rat. It was much worse pain than parting with his beloved railway. Mr. McGill was good at his work. He liked a technical problem, and he had time to solve it. The gasworks for once did not break down. The tripod was finished in a week. Mr. McGill made things to last. In a quarter-inch steel and inch gas pipe, solidly welded together and given black finish to prove it's against rust. The tripod held the round body of the telescope just fine. It would hold the round body of the machine gun equally well, and if the legs were bedded in concrete. ...